Welcome. Today, we examine the PESA Act. This analytical explores the intersection between legislative intent and ground reality within the scheduled areas of Rajasthan. We will break down how a groundbreaking constitutional framework was designed to empower indigenous communities, analyze where structural friction has hindered its implementation, and discuss the pathways required to fulfill its original democratic promise. To understand tribal governance in India, we must begin with its foundational architecture. When the 73rd Constitutional Amendment introduced local self-governance through Panchayati Raj, it did not automatically extend to 5th schedule areas. To address this gap, the Parliament enacted the Panchayats, Extension to Scheduled Areas, Act in 1996, following landmark recommendations from the Bhuria Committee. Its statutory mandate was unprecedented: to apply the decentralized governance provisions of Part 9 of the Constitution directly to 5th Schedule regions, while making vital modifications to protect and restore indigenous self-governance traditions. Geographically, PESA operates at two distinct scales. On a national macro level, the Act applies to 10 states housing India's 5th schedule areas, providing a framework designed to safeguard tribal autonomy across diverse geography. At the micro level within Rajasthan, PESA was formally brought into operation on September 30, 1999. It governs designated scheduled areas across 8 specific districts: Banswara, Dungarpur, Pratapgarh, Chittorgarh, Udaipur, Rajsamand, Pali, and Sirohi. Together, these regions represent the core demographic zone for tribal self-determination in the state. What is PESA designed to achieve at its core? The Act engineers tribal autonomy along 3 primary pillars. First, as a cultural bedrock, it mandates the protection and preservation of the unique traditions, customs, and religious practices of tribal communities. Second, it requires structural alignment, meaning the administrative setup must strictly conform to traditional management systems rather than imposing alien bureaucratic structures. Third, as a democratic engine, it establishes participatory democracy by placing the Gram Sabha at the absolute center of all local governance, resource management, and economic planning activities. Despite its legislative design, PESA encounters significant friction in practice. Diagnosing this underperformance reveals 3 interconnected bottlenecks. First, financial deficits persist due to a severe lack of independent local revenue and over-reliance on conditional state grants, and a hesitation among local bodies to exercise their statutory tax levying rights. Second, structural weaknesses stem from chronically under-resourced local administrations and a diluted positioning of the Gram Sabha during actual decision-making. Third, power asymmetries emerge from suffocating control maintained by state bureaucracies and the intentional creation of parallel bodies that bypass elected local institutions. A critical flaw in execution is what we term the bypass mechanism. PESA explicitly intended for the Gram Sabha to serve as the supreme localized decision-making authority. However, in practice, state bureaucracies frequently construct parallel institutional bodies, such as specialized development committees or user groups. These parasitic structures intercept public funds and administrative jurisdiction, bypassing the Gram Sabha entirely. Consequently, the constitutional mandate is rendered structurally hollow, leaving the primary village assembly deprived of its intended authority and resources. When we contrast legislative intent with ground reality, the disconnect becomes stark. Where the vision established the Gram Sabha as the center of all governance, the reality is subjugation to bureaucracy and parallel bodies, causing a loss of tribal trust and institutional dilution. Where the vision mandated financial autonomy and self-reliance, the reality shows extreme dependence on state grants, leading to fiscal paralysis at the grassroots level. Finally, where the vision promised administrative setups aligned with tribal custom, top-down bureaucratic standardization has resulted in the progressive erosion of indigenous self-governance. To reactivate PESA and realize its full potential, we propose 4 structural remedies centered on building a financially and structurally independent Gram Sabha. First, establish a clear division of work by transferring administrative subjects directly to Panchayats and defining rigid boundaries across all 3 governance tiers. Second, enforce tax levying rights to help grassroots institutions build local revenue and break grant dependency. Third, implement targeted training programs so tribal delegates can effectively navigate administrative systems. Fourth, expand women's awareness to ensure female representatives fully understand and exercise their constitutional and financial rights. In conclusion, the turbulent life cycle of PESA in Rajasthan yields a profound diagnostic insight. The legislation itself is not fundamentally flawed. The friction stems almost entirely from the state's reluctance to relinquish power. To realize the Bhuria Committee's vision, Rajasthan must stop treating PESA as a mere administrative extension of top-down bureaucracy into scheduled areas. It must execute true functional and financial devolution, returning genuine power, resources, and democracy back to the Gram Sabha. That's it for now. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this quick revision.